get some of that good Snoop weed?
I've smoked with Unc before, yeah.
Yeah.
That was Lauren admitting she was close with Snoop. And at first, everyone thought it was just a normal friendship. But now, new footage of Snoop and Lauren together is raising eyebrows. Some people believe it confirms a hidden connection, maybe even that she played a role in setting him up. Let me break it down. Snoop and Lauren London. New footage. That's all it took to send the entire hip-hop community into a frenzy. Footage that doesn't just show Snoop Dogg smiling for the cameras or doing one of his laid-back Uncle Snoop skits, but footage that puts him side by side with none other than Lauren London, Nippy Hussle's longtime partner in the aftermath of Nippy's murder. You see, Lauren London isn't just another mourner in Nippy's circle. She is Nippy's circle. From her heartbreaking tribute at the Staples Center to her powerful speech at the BET Awards, Lauren became the voice, the image, the symbol of Nippy's loss. Whoever stood next to her wasn't just standing next to Lauren. They were standing next to Nippy's entire empire. After Nip's death, Lauren wasn't just the grieving partner. She became the public face of his memory.
Yeah, but you don't know till it's at your front door. I always say the front row at the funeral is different. You know, when you have to sit on, like, you know, I've been at a lot of funerals.
I bet.
I've never sat front row at one. That's different.
What does that do to you?
Shift your perspective on life. You know what I mean? Make you see not only that is life short, but that it's a gift, you know, and because everyone's time is so different.
The way she spoke about him, as we just saw, turned her into the living embodiment of his memory. Brands put her front and center in campaigns honoring Nippy. Award shows handed her the mic for tributes. Documentaries leaned on her voice to carry the story of his impact. She was everywhere, not because she wanted to be, but because the culture demanded it. People wanted to see her, to hear her, to know Nippy's story through her. That turned her into something more than a partner. She became a chess piece. If you stood beside Lauren, you stood beside Nippy's memory. And that's why this clip caused such an uproar, because proximity to Lauren meant proximity to Nip's legacy. And in a world where that legacy was already being fought over, Snoop's presence in that frame didn't look innocent. It looked calculated. But to understand why people reacted the way they did, you need to step back to the moment Nippy was killed. When those shots rang out in front of the Marathon store, Los Angeles didn't just lose a rapper. It lost a community builder, a businessman, a man who had risen above the block while still holding it down. And when a man becomes bigger than his block, the fallout is never simple. Love is matched by jealousy. Loyalty is matched by betrayal. In the immediate aftermath, Nippy's brother, Black Sam, became the protector. He wasn't just mourning, he was defending. He made it clear that Nippy's empire would remain under family control and that anybody who disrespected his brother's name would face consequences.
That disrespect, bro. You in their presence, bro. You better smack. In their presence, ain't nobody disrespected, bro.
These weren't empty words. They were a warning shot. Sam knew vultures would circle. He knew opportunists would move in. And he wasn't about to let Nippy's empire become a feeding ground. But here's where things got messy. Nippy's empire wasn't just built on contracts and businesses. It was built on relationships. And relationships are fragile. Even among Nippy's closest people, fractures appeared. Brick Baby admitted that he and Black Sam had their own clash after Nip's death, and the fight was about loyalty.
Basically was like, you rocking with him? Like, you rocking with him? I'm rocking with my brother.
This is what Nip's loss did. It forced people to pick sides. It made every alliance suspect. It turned grief into suspicion. And then came Charleston White's explosive claim. He said the truth nobody wanted to admit out loud. Nippy was killed not just by one man, but by the jealousy of his own set.
All the big homies in the set was jealous of Nip, because all the young Nip. Nip got bigger than the program, so Nip got clipped.
Think about what that means. If Nippy was clipped because he rose too high, then his empire wasn't just under attack from the outside. It was under siege from the inside. And this is where the industry enters. Because while the family fought for control and the streets wrestled with jealousy, the music industry saw opportunity. Nippy had cracked a code. He owned his masters. He owned his brand. He owned his block. Independence was his crown jewel. And in an industry built on exploitation, That independence made him dangerous. Shoe Knight from his prison cell made the claim that connected everything. He said Puffy destabilized Nippy and his circle by introducing them to harder drugs.
He the one got these dudes on hardcore drugs. He was introducing these guys to different type of level of drugs.
This wasn't just partying. This was weakening a movement. And then he dropped the bomb on Snoop that Snoop was maneuvering in the shadows, even trying to bail out Keith D, the man tied to Tupac's murder because Key was talking too much.
Look, I don't have nothing to do with none of that, and I'm not leaving prison to go to nobody county jail. To the point they were saying, well, you can't leave and sacrifice a little bit in the county jail to stop that black man from getting life? Hell no.
Literally just weeks after Nippy's murder, the streets of Los Angeles were thick with suspicion. The Marathon store became sacred ground, but also contested ground. Who had the right to represent Nippy? Who was speaking for him? And who was using his name for clout? The whispers got louder with every passing day. Longtime affiliates were accused of exploiting Nippy's name in interviews. Social media posts turned into battlegrounds. Someone would pose by a mural and immediately be accused of chasing fame. Another would claim they were like family and be called a fraud. It was chaos. And that chaos wasn't random. It was the fallout of Nippy's death leaving a power vacuum. Putting all those pieces together, you can see why people got worked up. They expect Lauren London to understand that she isn't just grieving. She's also holding the weight of Nip's empire on her shoulders. She is his torchbearer, and that Snoop getting too close to her is trying to take that torch. Snoop wants something from Nippy, and he'll do whatever it takes to get this. He has proved in the past. Whether you believe it or not, it almost doesn't matter. What matters is that perception became reality. And the perception was clear. Snoop Dogg wasn't just mourning. He was positioning. Nippy's death wasn't just a personal loss. It was a political act. By standing beside Lauren, Snoop gained proximity to Nip's memory. By gaining proximity, he gained credibility. And by gaining credibility, he strengthened his own position as the elder statesman of the West Coast. To some, it was natural. To others, it was predatory. But in both cases, the outcome was the same. The footage became a symbol of the larger battle for Nippy's throne. And make no mistake, there was a throne. If you believed what Suge said earlier about Snoop, then you'd understand that Nippy wasn't just taken out by a lone gunman. He was weakened, destabilized, and left vulnerable by forces bigger than the neighborhood. And who else did Suge accuse of playing both sides? Snoop Dogg. That's why the footage hit harder than anyone expected. It wasn't about what was literally happening in the clip. It was about what it represented. To the family, it looked like outsiders stepping in. To the streets, it looked like power shifting. To the industry, it looked like an opportunity. And to the fans, it looked like confirmation of every suspicion they'd been whispering since 2019. And of course, why wouldn't fans be suspicious? Everyone knows exactly who Snoop is. Snoop's history of betrayal. Tupac Shakur, one of the most legendary rappers to ever touch a mic, was gunned down in 1996 in Las Vegas. And in the years since, the story of what really happened that night has been told and retold 1,000 times. But there's one constant: people keep pointing at the people closest to him. And time after time, Snoop's name finds its way into that conversation. The reason is simple. When Tupac was alive, Snoop was his so-called brother in arms. They recorded together. They partied together. They stood on stages together. But behind the scenes, Snoop was cozying up with the very people Pac considered enemies.
That night, when you look at it, Dad said that, hey, we weren't going. Snoop was on, death row, basically Tupac and everything above, and something gonna happen.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Warren G says that Snoop was at his house watching the fight, and he had the walkie-talkie, the radio.
For instance, Big Dre allegedly in the car with Keith D the night Tupac was killed. You'd think anyone with loyalty to Pac would stay miles away from someone like that. Not Snoop. He worked with Big Dre on a mixtape after Tupac died. When Tupac died in 1996, Snoop was in a complicated position. Their relationship had been strained in Pac's final days. But after the death, Snoop emerged as one of Pac's loudest mourners, aligning himself with the tragedy as well as the person linked to it and reshaping his image in the process. Let that sink in. Your brother is murdered. The suspects are still in plain sight. And instead of distancing yourself, you're cutting records with them. That's not loyalty. That's betrayal. And Snoop's betrayal of Pac didn't stop there. He's been caught over and over embellishing stories about Pac. Sometimes twisting the truth, other times outright fabricating events. For example, he once claimed Tupac was the one who introduced him to blunts. Sounds like a cool story, right? Except the math doesn't add up. Cameron Diaz herself admitted she used to buy weed from Snoop back in high school, which means Snoop had been deep in that lifestyle long before Pac came around. So why lie? Why create this fake bond with Tupac after the fact? The answer is image legacy. Snoop knows the public loves to see him as part of Pac's inner circle, so he rewrites history to fit that narrative. Napoleon from Tupac's own Outlaws crew called him out on this. That's a false narrative. Pac wasn't disliked in prison. He was respected. Snoop just made that up. Even Nas got dragged into Snoop's web of lies. Snoop once told a story about Tupac confronting Nas at the 1996 VMAs, claiming Nas rolled up with 100 shooters and Pac was reckless. But according to Napoleon, who was actually there, that showdown never happened the way Snoop described. In reality, Pac and Nas handled it like gentlemen, squashing any misunderstanding on the spot. Nas himself confirmed Snoop's version W.
Still, Big came out to California, and you don't see not one picture of him and Snoop together. You don't see not one place where they smoked a blunt together. Both of them like to smoke. We was in the studio with Bone Thugs and Harmony. Snoop never came over there. So you tell me, was they really that cool? Or it was just a facade that was put up?
Gene Deal questioned why if Snoop and Biggie were so close, they never hung out when Biggie was in LA. But somehow Snoop claims he saw Biggie in Atlanta after Pac's death. Come on, man. Once again, the narrative doesn't match the reality, which brings us right back to Nippy Hussle. Because if you're seeing the pattern, you already know what happened next.